Hello and welcome to the Robert Half Japan podcast series. Today, we will be speaking with Jim Takagi, Managing Partner and Chief Financial Officer for the Izanami Initiative, a golf investment and management company that operates 2 leading golf courses in the Tokyo area. Aside from being a golfer, of course, Jim is responsible for all of the finance, taxation, legal, and HR issues for the company, as well as its investment strategy. He is a third-generation Japanese-Canadian and has been in Japan for 23 years, with a diverse career ranging from the big accounting firms to a variety of in-house roles at companies such as Philip Morris. We kicked off asking Jim about his background and what are some of the unique features about being the CFO for a company where you are actively encouraged to go out and play golf.
I'm a Canadian chartered accountant. Got my chartered accountancy in Canada, working for a big, at that time, 8 audit firm. And then I moved to Philip Morris, which was a very large company with lots of money, big organization, lots of good people around you, easy to work in. The golf company, it's fun to play golf, but it's now become sort of business-like. Separating out golf and business, it's all become business now. So some of the fun of golf has gone out of the game for me. But occasionally I have a chance to go out with my friends. And of course, now that I work for a golf company and own a golf course, I get to play at a relatively low cost.
We then talked about the changing role of the CFO and the finance department, with the CFO of today often playing a much more fundamental role in helping to manage the company. We asked what are the major challenges he faces in his work.
Fundamentally, the stewardship, the part of protecting and preserving assets, hasn't changed. I think since the Lehman shock, the managing of risk, controls, compliance clearly has taken on a much larger role. Before it was, we have to do this for our shareholders, but now it's become part of business. You really need to work on this stuff. Operations, getting involved in operations is part of how to control and manage that risk. So before, CFO would probably only look at internal controls, make sure that things were being approved appropriately and in compliance with regulations. But now the CFO is also obligated to get in and find out if you're getting your bang for buck. Are dollars and money is being spent efficiently, effectively? So you're much more involved in operations. The third part is probably because all roads lead to the ledger, and it's about cash. The CFO is much more involved in the strategies. He's become an integral part of the management team, much more involved in the company's strategy and vision. And in a place like Japan, where corporate tax rate is 42%, that tax and legal planning is a big way of driving the bottom line cash that comes out of a business. And the CFO is probably the only person that would get involved in that. Lastly, there's probably a CFO needs to become a catalyst. Needs to drive change. So where he sees risk, he needs to then take action to try to either mitigate that risk. If he sees inefficiencies or ineffectiveness, he has to become a catalyst and drive that change.
We then asked if the role of the CFO today is more like the traditional role of a COO.
I think the lines have become blurred between that. Clearly, the CEO is probably more focused on sales and marketing, driving the top line of the business. And the CFO needs to be a very strong partner of making sure that whatever drops to the bottom line is maximized to the best of your ability. So that's controlling costs, putting the appropriate tax planning and legal planning in place, and mitigating any risks to the bottom line.
What's a typical day look like?
A typical day for me would be to probably first look at the top line, how we did on a daily basis, then cash. Then I would look at various changes that, obviously, as a CFO, I started as a catalyst, and make sure from a project management point of view that they're being driven, that they're going to actually end up with the results that have been targeted.
And where do you get time for all the strategic planning you need to do?
Well, the strategic planning sometimes is actually hitting a golf ball and going through the actual business itself. I think viewing the business as a customer is probably what helps you best understand where you need to change your business.
Jim has worked many years in Japan, but also has considerable international experience. So we asked him to discuss the differences he sees in the workplace between the two corporate cultures.
I think there's a different expectation for leaders in Japan. If I go through probably the 5 things that I feel leaders in Japan need to do is, one is the ability to give clear directions. The Japanese language is not as clear as English. Can be very gray. So consequently, giving clear directions can be difficult at times, but that's exactly what they need is clear directions. The second one is collaboration. Harmony is very important in Japan. They don't like confrontation. In fact, they like to avoid it to the best of their ability. So collaboration and harmony is very key. And the other thing would be probably it's about feeling, your determination and passion, showing people that you have to get this done and that you're passionate about getting done is a big factor in swaying people in Japan to actually do something. Sometimes in the Western culture, the goal is more important than the process. In Japan, the process is just as important as the goal. So how you get there is just as much as important as the result. And lastly, most Japanese people have the word kaizen, which is trying to work within an existing structure. So if you can accomplish what you need to accomplish, the idea is to try to work within the existing structure versus throwing it out and starting from scratch, which can be a more typical Western thinking.
We then turned to recruitment issues and asked what he looks for when hiring and what makes an applicant stand out from the pack.
I've been trained to look for a couple of competencies, and first and foremost for me in finance is integrity. When you're dealing with money and making sure the numbers are right, it's easy to adjust numbers to make them look right. Integrity is a core component of that. So I look for integrity. I look for teamwork. There are a lot of smart people who can do numbers, but they don't necessarily work well with other people. And as I noted, finance really needs to work with the business. So you have to be a team player. You have to be able to talk to the sales and marketing guy who really doesn't understand a number, but you got to get him to explain something, and that requires a lot of teamwork.
For those who want to get to the top of the profession, what did he believe it takes to become a CFO?
I think a CFO sometimes gets the mentality that you're back office, but I think for a CFO or any employee, you have to remember that no matter what your position is, the company is yours. So if you feel the company is yours, you act that way. This is not just a company that pays you a salary, but this is your company. If you can show that, I think you will act totally different. And clearly as a CFO, that's how you need to act. To become a CFO, I think you probably need to realize one small thing accomplished can outweigh a lot of big ideas. So rather than having just big ideas, it's probably getting things done, executing, delivering something. That small accomplishment can be a big thing to become a CFO. Language is not so important. Sometimes we accountants or finance people talk numbers. A lot of people don't understand us. But at the end of the day, it's the feeling of how you communicate that really is important. So I think if you're going to communicate, you need to communicate with feeling, with passion, and then people will understand what's going on. And I think if you can do that, I think you'll be a pretty good CFO.
Some thoughts from Jim Takagi, CFO of the Izanami Initiative, and this is the Robert Half Japan podcast series.